Before we get too far into things, I want to give some shout outs. First off, I want to give a shout out to those who serve in the military, both those that are serving and are in the room, but also those who are watching online and serving all around the world. Will you help me welcome and thank our military today? Next up, I want to give a shout out to one of our owners. At Next Level Church, we don't have members, we have owners. Members have rights, but owners have responsibilities. And one of the things that I absolutely love about having owners is how our middle school and high school students have embraced this. And on a regular basis, I will catch one of our students trying to make a difference, trying to make their church better. And a few weeks ago on Wednesday nights after students, one of our high school boys noticed that there were smudge marks on the glass in the room that we were meeting in. And he asked if he could clean them. And he went and found cleaner and clean. Some of you are married to grown adults who won't clean windows. This was a high school boy who was literally cleaning the windows, and no one asked him to do it. He just saw a need, and he met a need. And so I want to give him a shout out. Will you help me thank and welcome him? Well, today we're continuing our series, Christmas Spirit Month, and today is Christmas Movie Sunday. If you've never been here for one of our Christmas Movie Sundays, what you need to know is that we are going to watch a bunch of clips from a famous movie, but I promise you we're going to get into the Bible. The clips are here to set up and to illustrate the biblical point that we're going to find. And today's film is considered to be a Christmas classic, but it didn't start off that way. When the movie first came out in theaters, it was a modest hit. In fact, it did so poorly at the box office that it came out at Thanksgiving, and it was out of the theaters before Christmas even got here, and it is a Christmas movie. The movie really went without any recognition until the 90s. In the 1990s, TBS and TNT started airing this movie for 24 hours, starting on Christmas Eve, and went all the way through Christmas evening. The movie became such a big hit, it became an annual tradition for many families. In fact, this year, and almost every year that it's aired on television, it's estimated that 54.4 million people watch this movie in a 24-hour span. That's an incredibly amount of people. If you haven't seen the movie, it's entitled A Christmas Story, and it's the story of a boy named Ralphie who lives in Indiana in the 1940s. He has two parents who are at home with him, and he has a little brother, Randy, and the story is narrated by an adult version of Ralphie, and he looks back over this one Christmas experience, and we see from the very beginning of the film, Ralphie wants a specific Christmas gift. He wants a Red Ryder BB gun. If you've seen the movie, you know how every adult responds to him, and would you help me out with that? They all respond by saying the same thing. You'll shoot your eye out. Yep. And so the film goes through the whole time with him searching for this gift. And in between this, you have various vignettes, just various scenes, scenarios of random things that happen. And the first one is one of the most famous scenes from this movie. Check it out. So the leg lamp is extremely famous, and it's interesting because the lamp has nothing to do with Christmas, but because it's in this movie, it's become a big part of a lot of people's Christmas traditions, including bringing it out in their house or using it as an ornament at Christmas time. Well, the next scene is a very famous scene, and it's potentially the most quoted scene in the movie. Check it out. So this is not the point of the movie, but it's a great reminder that your kids are watching you. Ralphie learns the word fudge from his dad, we come to find out. And so often when it comes to kids, so often what is more caught than taught. And so be careful what you say around your kids. Well, I mentioned this earlier in the film, but Ralphie asks for a Red Ryder BB gun, and it's the gift that he wants for Christmas, and every adult responds the same way. And so in a last-ditch effort, he goes to see the big man himself, Santa Claus, to try to get this gift for Christmas. And that sets up our next scene. Check it out. There's a lot of classic scenes in this film, and I don't have time to show you all of them, but I do want to show you one last scene because I think it is in this scene that we really get the parable of the film. The final scene I want to show you, it is Christmas morning, and the family is wanting to eat Christmas lunch together, but the neighbors' dogs have gotten into the house and have destroyed their Christmas turkey, and that sets up our final scene for the day. Check it out. So that scene is a classic, but I want to make sure that you know he ends by saying, all is right in the world. And what's interesting is the tagline for A Christmas Story is peace, harmony, comfort, and joy, maybe next year. If you've ever seen the film, nothing goes right. Like, it's just one bad episode after another. And yet the film ends with pointing out to all is well in the world. And this is where I think we can get the parable of A Christmas Story. A parable of A Christmas Story is life's interruptions often make the best memories. Life's interruptions often make the best memories. Think about it just for a second. The stories that you retell every year are not the stories where everything went perfect. The stories that you retell are the ones where an interruption happened, an accident happened, something didn't go as planned. Those are the ones that create great memories. Those are the ones that we laugh at. Those are the stories that capture us, and we tell them over and over again. And with that being said, what I want to do is I want to take us back to the original Christmas story, the story that if you grew up in church, you're very familiar with Mary and Joseph. And I want to show you that their Christmas story is a lot like the movie in that nothing goes right. Now, here's what I want to ask you to do. If you grew up going to church, you know the story of Mary and Joseph, you know the traditional Christmas story, and you love it. And you're like, man, it's such a great story. And one of the reasons you love it is because you know how it ends. Just for a second, I want to ask that you just pretend that you've never heard it before. And I want you just to put yourself in their shoes, in their situations, and just try to see the Christmas story in a new light. Because I think what's going to happen is you're going to appreciate the interruptions, the moments that things don't go the way that we would plan. And so with that being said, we're going to start in the book of Matthew at the beginning of the Christmas story, Matthew chapter 1, verses 18. The text says, "This is how the birth of Jesus the Messiah came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit." A lot of life's interruptions start with a but, B-U-T. It's okay to say that in church, B-U-T. Did you notice in the text it says that Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together? A lot of our plans in life don't go the way that we thought. I was planning on going to this college, but life threw me a curveball. I was planning to have this amount of money by this time in life, but life threw me a curveball. I was planning for my kids to do this, but it didn't work out that way. I had these plans for my life, but something came along and it rearranged them. It changed them. And in Joseph's case, the but was he had plans to marry his future wife named Mary. But before they came together, he finds out that she is pregnant. Now, this is where some context is needed. In the Jewish custom, they had what was known as a betrothal period. And the betrothal period was basically like an engagement. But what would happen is the future husband and wife would come together and they would basically get engaged, but they wouldn't have the ceremony and they wouldn't consummate the marriage. What would happen during this time period is that the future husband would leave the wife and he would go build a home for their future home. Now, there's a beautiful picture of this in the New Testament. If you're familiar with the way that Jesus leaves this earth, he dies, rises again, and then he meets with his disciples and he tells them, I'm going away to do what? To build a house. But don't worry, I'm going to come back. It's this beautiful picture of Jesus coming back for his bride, the church. We are the church. Jesus will come back at one point. And what are we to do? We are waiting. We're waiting on Jesus to come back. Well, that's the betrothal period in the Jewish custom. So Mary is waiting to be married. Joseph is waiting to be married. But they have this union that is sacred. In fact, it is so sacred that if you are to break it off for any reason, like having a baby out of wedlock, the punishment would be corporal punishment. You could literally have the person stoned if they were pregnant during the betrothal period. So Joseph has these plans. He has this idea. He's building a house for his wife, and he hears that she is pregnant, and it breaks his heart. I want to show you what the text says next, because I think it's really important for us. The text says, Matthew 1:19, because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law, and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. I think that Joseph often gets overlooked in the Christmas story. Joseph was an amazing and a humble man. Just for a second, I want you to put yourself in Joseph's sandals. You are working really hard on a home for your future bride. And as you're working on this home, you hear through the grapevine that your future bride that you have not been with yet is pregnant with someone else's baby. Now, by their law, what he could have done is he could have disgraced her publicly. They could have shamed her. They would have brought her out into the middle of the town, the middle of the neighborhood where they lived in. They would have made her feel bad, shame her, and the ultimate punishment was the town could decide because of her unfaithfulness, they could literally take her life. And Joseph, by law, had every right to do that. But because he loved her, he did not want to dispose her to public disgrace. So instead, he said, I'm just going to divorce her. I'm just going to break this thing off quietly and go about my business. I think this is something important about his life, and it reminds me of the quote by A.J. Sherrill. It says, it's the challenging places, both expected and unexpected, where our character is revealed and can grow. It's the challenging places, both expected and unexpected, where our character is revealed and can grow. Your character is not revealed when you get what you want. Your character is not revealed when God says yes right away and the miracle happens right away. Your character is revealed when you hear no. Your character is revealed when you don't have your way. When you have a plan and you're going one direction and life interrupts it, how you handle that exposes your character. And Joseph was a man of character. He had every right to shame his future wife. But instead, he says, I'm just going to let this thing go. I'm just going to be quiet about it, and we're just going to go our separate ways. But look what happens next in the text, Matthew 1, 20 through 21. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. Now, we don't know the name of this angel, but Joseph goes to bed thinking that he is going to break things off, that he will not marry his future, his love of his life. He's not going to marry her. He goes to sleep thinking that, but then he has a dream. And the angel appears to him and says, hey, don't call things off. This baby, it is from God. She was telling the truth. You don't need to call things off. Now, the author is named Matthew, and he doesn't tell us the angel's name. When you get to Luke, which is the other parts of the Christmas story that we learn, Luke tells us the angel that keeps appearing to everyone, and the angel that keeps appearing to everyone is the name Gabriel. It's the angel that appears to John the Baptist's parents, and that's really what kicks off the Christmas story. And he says, hey, God has heard your prayers, and you are going to give birth to a son. He's going to be the prophet that leads the way for the Messiah. And it is Gabriel who appears to Mary and says, you are going to be pregnant with God's son. I don't know for sure if it is the angel Gabriel that appears to Joseph, but I think it makes sense that it's the same one that's visiting all these people in the Christmas story. Now, why is this significant? It's significant because in the Jewish culture, the angel Gabriel is known as the interrupter. Anytime the angel Gabriel shows up, your life is about to take a hard right turn. Anytime the angel Gabriel shows up, life is not going to go the way that you planned. And the angel Gabriel is saying these things, and we, on the other end of the story, at the end of the Christmas story, we're so thankful for the way things worked out. But just for a second, think about how they were feeling. Mary had plans for her life, and her life is radically different right now. Joseph had plans for his life, and his life is radically different right now. The angel came and gave them what ended up being good news, but in the moment, it's very different than what any of them had planned on. Now, this is similar to the movie A Christmas Story, in that in the original Christmas story with Mary and Joseph, it feels like there's just a bunch of vignettes, a bunch of events that happen together to form one story. And in order to get the rest of the Christmas story, we need to jump over to Luke. And I want you to keep in mind the interruptions that continue to happen in the Christmas story. Luke 2, verses 1 through 3. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to their own town to register. Okay, how would you respond to that news? If I'm being honest, and I've had an angel visit me that says, hey, I'm about to be the parent for God's son, I would think that that would come with some extra favor. I would think that would come with some blessings. Oh, now I'm going to get the hookup. I'm going to be staying at the Ritz. I'm going to be staying at the nicest hotel. This is going to be great. Everything's going to work out perfectly. But the very next thing that we learn is after she is pregnant and after Mary and Joseph deal with all this and the angel comes to them, they now have to deal with the census. And the census says they have to travel back to their home. Now, We just skip from one verse to the next, and we don't know what that took. But we know by literally looking at a map, you know that it is 90 miles from Nazareth to Bethlehem. 90 miles, and they didn't have cars or trains or vehicles to get them there. So they traveled most likely by foot. Maybe if they could afford it, they had an animal like a donkey. They traveled for 4 days, traveling 8 hours a day. And she is pregnant. Put that in context just for a second. This would have been very easy for them to say, man, this is not what we signed up for. This isn't what we planned for. God, come on, can't you just throw us a bone here? Like, it would have been much easier if we could have stayed in our hometown and given birth in the comforts of our home. But now we're traveling. I want you to take note of this. If you're taking notes, write this down. Life's interruptions give us opportunities to rely on God. Life's interruptions give us opportunities to rely on God. I don't know what you're going through this Christmas season, but I can promise you that not everything is always going to work out for you. And so often when things don't go according to plan, we get mad and we get angry and we get upset, and sometimes we even get mad at God. But what if these interruptions, what if these things that are happening are actually moments to connect with the God of the universe? The truth is, when everything goes perfectly, we rely on ourselves. We rely on our own strength. It's only when things go off the rails, when things start to fall apart, that we drop to our knees and say, God, I need you. So I cannot tell you, and I would not tell you to start appreciating every interruption that happens, but I do want to encourage you to reframe the way that you think about interruptions. Because interruptions are an opportunity for you to rely on the God of the universe. Let's see what happens next. Luke 2, 4 through 7. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. She gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger. Why? Because there was no room for them available. There's no guest room. Now, they've traveled for 90 miles, 8 hours a day for 4 days to get to a town where there is no guest room. Now, why is there no guest room? Because everyone had to travel because of this census. And they show up a little bit late to the party, and they can't even get a private room. They have to give birth to the Savior of the world in a barn. I try to find a way to show this meme every single Christmas season because I think it's absolutely hilarious. But the meme is Joseph talking to Mary, and he says, "Don't be mad. I said I was sorry. I should have made reservations. Talk to me, Mary. Mary, Mary." Mary just says, "I'm fine." And then the caption underneath it says, "How Silent Night Began." I love that. If you're married, you can relate to that. At some point, your spouse has said, "I'm fine." And the narrator in your head says, "She is not fine." But almost every single part of the Christmas story that we know and love is an interruption, including they show up to the town that they're forced to go to, and there's no room for them. They have to go to the barn. And I know that we're so busy with all of our agendas and all of our plans, and we all have these things that we want to do this Christmas season, but I want to encourage you just to embrace some of the interruptions that are going to happen. Some of the things, when the Christmas dinner isn't perfect and someone breaks something or the gift doesn't come or one of these things, these crazy things that happen, this may just become a memory that you end up retelling for years to come. But I want to ask you just to pause and just to embrace the interruption. I know they're frustrating and I know they're annoying, but at the end of the day, God can move in the interruptions in your life. Nothing in the Christmas story seems to go as planned. But at the end of the day, it works out beautifully. And I wonder if all of this turmoil at the very beginning, I wonder if that had anything to do to influence Jesus' life. I saw this quote not too long ago, and I think it's pretty powerful. It says, roughly half of Jesus' miracles were interruptions. He had a plan, he had a destination, but he was interruptible. I wonder how we miss what God is doing because we hold too tightly to our own plans. You ever notice how often Jesus was interrupted? In fact, he was often interrupted by his interruptions. There's multiple stories of times where Jesus is going to do something and someone interrupts him. Like there's this one time where this guy who was a religious leader named Jairus says, hey, my daughter is dying. Can you come heal him? And Jesus says, yes, I'll go heal her. And on his way to heal her, the crowd is surrounding by Jesus. And a woman who's been bleeding for 12 years comes behind Jesus and touches his cloak. And she becomes healed. And Jesus stops what he's doing and he talks to the woman. It would have been so easy for Jesus to say, I don't have time for this interruption. There's someone else waiting for me over here. There's a daughter who is dying. I don't have time to deal with you. But that's not what Jesus does. He makes time for the interruptions. And I want to ask that you do the same thing. You may not like every interruption that's thrown at you this Christmas season. But I want to ask you to learn to trust that maybe this is an opportunity. It's at least an opportunity for you to rely on God. Well, the Christmas story ends by telling us how Mary responds to all these events. And I think it's a pretty powerful way to respond. Luke 2:19 says, but Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. I don't know about you, but if all this happened to me, I don't know if I would be pondering and cherishing. I think I would be, God, why did it go this way? And woe is me, and this was horrible. But isn't it true that the interruptions in life end up creating the stories and the memories that we end up telling over and over again? In fact, I want to encourage you to be like Mary. If you're taking notes, I want to encourage you to write this down. How we handle life's interruptions will determine if our moments become comedies or tragedies. How we handle life's interruptions will determine if our moments become comedies or tragedies. The movie A Christmas Story is considered by many to be one of the greatest Christmas movies ever made, and I believe that it's a movie that is rewatched every single year, not because everything goes perfectly, but because everything falls apart. It's the mishaps that we relate to. When life is perfect, it gets boring. And when life does everything that you want it to, yeah, it feels good because you feel like you're in control. But when life is perfect, we tend to only rely on ourselves. It's when life falls apart. It's when we get a curveball. It's when something happens that we didn't see coming that it causes us to drop to our knees. So I want to leave you with one final thought. Embrace the interruptions. They are the very ministry in which we are called. The interruptions, the annoying phone call, the kid's story that just goes on, and you have other things that you want to do, make time for that interruption. The person at work that you're just bothered by, maybe they don't have anyone else, make time for the interruption. The issues in the family that come in that feel like a Christmas movie because you just want to strangle them and they're talking about things that you should never talk about. All of that feels like, why can't we just all get along? And I want you just to embrace it for a little bit. Embrace the interruptions. The interruptions are the very things in which maybe God has called you to do some ministry. So may we be a people who embraces life interruptions. It doesn't mean that we'll like all of them. But may we remember that the interruptions are often the things that cause us to drop to our knees. And may we be like Mary and ponder and cherish the interruptions that happen to us this Christmas season. And may we watch what God does in our lives. Will you pray with me with every head bowed, every eye closed? If you're here today and you've never met Jesus, I want to give you an opportunity to do just that. The greatest interruption of your life is giving your life to Jesus. And it's an interruption in the best possible way. Jesus will change the direction of your life. He'll change the purpose, and it's so worth it. So if you've never met him, I want to give you a chance to become a Christian today. The way that we start a relationship with him is by just talking to him. And so I want to lead you in a prayer. And if you're ready to become a Christian today, would you just repeat this prayer quietly in your heart after me? God, I admit that I often have plans that don't include you. But right now, I give you my heart. I give you my soul. I ask that you would forgive me. Forgive me for my sins. That you'd wash me white as snow. And that you'd help me to live for you all the days of my life. With every head still bowed and every eye closed, if you said that prayer, we want to celebrate with you. We don't want to embarrass you. We just want to help you take your next steps. And the way that we're going to do that is our ushers have a card that we want to put in your hands. And if you fill out this card and then place it in the black drop box in the back of the room, we'll follow up with you this week and help you know what it means to walk with God and to be a Christian. But if you said that prayer with me, if you would just be so bold and raise your hand, our ushers got to get that card to you. So no one's looking around, but if you would just lift your hands up and keep your hand up till the ushers give you that card. For everyone else, I just want to pray over us. God, we don't like interruptions. In fact, a lot of us are control freaks. And we want to control every aspect of our life. And I just ask that the Christmas story would be a reminder this year that when interruptions happen, we need to drop to our knees. We need to ask, God, what are you up to? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to respond? May we keep a positive attitude. And may we understand that interruptions are opportunities to connect with you. I thank you for what you're going to do in our hearts and our minds. In Jesus' name, amen.